I am 47 years old, and I need to tell you something about survival that nobody wants to hear. They call me a hero because I made it home from Afghanistan. But heroes don't lie awake every night. For 22 years replaying the moment, their best friend's body flew past them in a cloud of sand and fire. Heroes don't spend 2 decades wishing they'd been sitting 3 feet to the left. I was 25 when I deployed to Kandahar. Came back 11 months later. But the person who came back wasn't James anymore. He died en route Irish on November 7th, 2003. He just kept breathing for another 22 years. His name was Ryan Mitchell, from Denver, Colorado. Wanted to be a high school coach when he got back. Used to draw up plays in the dirt during downtime, talking about the football team he'd never coach. Had this laugh that was too loud for any situation. Made everyone around him feel lighter, even in that hell. We'd been friends since basic training. Went through everything together. I trusted him more than my own brother. It was November 7th, 2003. I remember because it was his girlfriend Maria's birthday. He'd been talking all morning about the card he was going to send her, how he was going to propose when we got home. Showed me the ring he'd bought before deployment. Kept it in his left breast pocket. We were on a routine convoy patrol outside Kandahar. 4 Humvees. I was driving the second vehicle. Ryan was passenger seat, right next to me. The morning was cold. That dry Afghan cold that gets in your bones. Sky was that pale blue, almost white. We were joking about what we'd eat when we got back to base. Ryan wanted pizza, extra pepperoni, said he'd been dreaming about it for days. I told him the chow hall pizza tasted like cardboard. He said he didn't care. Anything was better than MRSEs. We were maybe 20 minutes from base. Road we'd driven 100 times before. Ryan was mid-sentence, something about his proposal plan. The IED was buried on my side of the road, driver's side, 3 feet from where I was sitting. But the blast didn't take me. It took Ryan. I remember the sound first. Not an explosion like in movies, more like the earth screaming. Then the pressure wave hit. Felt like getting punched by God. The Humvee lifted off the ground, metal twisting, glass shattering. And Ryan. I saw Ryan's body lifted out of his seat, thrown against the roof, then out through where the door used to be. When the vehicle stopped moving, I was still in my seat. Ears ringing so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Covered in dirt and blood and pieces of the door. My hands were shaking. Ryan's seat was empty. Just his helmet rolling around on the floor. The ring he'd shown me that morning. It was on the dashboard, covered in blood. I kicked open my door, fell out onto the road. Crawled on my hands and knees to where Ryan was lying, 20 feet from the vehicle, face down in the sand. Started doing chest compressions, screaming for the medic, but I knew. The way his eyes were open but not seeing anything. The way his body was too still. I knew. His last words to me, right before the blast were, "Maria's gonna lose her mind when she sees this ring." Then nothing. Just fire and metal and screaming. Then silence. That has lasted 22 years. When the dust settled and the medic finally pulled me away, I sat there for 2 hours. Just sat in the dirt next to the destroyed Humvee, staring at the crater where the IED had been. 3 feet from where I was sitting. 3 feet. That is all that separated me from Ryan. 3 feet and randomness and chaos. The combat isn't the hardest part. Coming home is harder, because everyone expects you to be grateful, to feel lucky, to move on. The biggest lie I told myself for 15 years, I survived because I was meant to live, because I had a purpose, because God wanted me here. But survival isn't divine intervention. Survival is 3 feet and bad luck for the wrong person. Ryan was sitting 3 feet to my right. The bomb was 3 feet to my left. That is all that separated life from death. No meaning, no purpose, just geometry and chance. And I've spent 22 years trying to figure out why I deserved those 3 feet. I came back to America in January 2004. People at the airport thanked me for my service, shook my hand, called me a hero. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them heroes don't make it home. Heroes die doing their job. Cowards like me survive. I was numb, empty. I'd go weeks without speaking. I'd sit in my apartment, lights off, staring at the wall. The screaming metal, Ryan's body hitting the ground. Every car backfire, every door slam. Every loud noise sent me back to that road. I kept my promise to Ryan. I found Maria. Drove to Denver 3 months after I got back. Gave her the ring. Told her everything. How much he loved her, how he talked about her every single day, how his last words were about her. She asked me if he suffered. I lied. Said it was instant. Said he didn't feel anything. But the truth is, I don't know. I'll never know. And that not knowing eats at me every single day. At the funeral, the casket was closed. Too damaged, they said. I stood there looking at a box that might as well have been empty, because Ryan wasn't in there. Ryan was still on that road in Afghanistan. Still frozen in that moment. Still mid-sentence about a proposal he'd never make. I disappeared after that. Stopped answering calls. Stopped going to V appointments. Stopped pretending I was okay. I got married at 27. Jessica. Beautiful woman. Kind. Patient. She tried to understand, but how could she? She didn't know what it is like to watch your best friend die in your place. She didn't know what it is like to carry that weight. I'd wake up screaming. 3, 4 times a week. Same nightmare. I am back in the Humvee. I hear the explosion. But this time, I am the one in the passenger seat. I am the one flying through the air. And Ryan's the one who survives. And in the dream, that feels right. That feels like justice. Jessica would try to comfort me. Hold me. Tell me it was just a dream. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Nothing has been okay since November 7th, 2003. We had 2 kids. Beautiful kids. Physically present, emotionally gone. A ghost in my own house. My son asked me once when he was 8, "Dad, were you a hero in the war?" I didn't answer, because the truth is, heroes die. Cowards like me come home and pretend to live. I had good years. Career. Wise. Worked construction. Made decent money. But none of it mattered, because every single day I woke up thinking, why am I alive and Ryan isn't? The worst part wasn't the nightmares. It was the good days. Days when I'd laugh at something, enjoy a meal with my family, feel happy for 5 minutes. Because immediately after, the guilt would crush me. How dare you be happy when Ryan's dead? How dare you have a family when he never got to propose to Maria? I missed my daughter's high school graduation. Was too drunk to drive. Too numb to care. She never said anything, but I saw it in her eyes. The disappointment, the understanding that her father was broken and couldn't be fixed. Jessica left when I was 38. Took the kids. I didn't fight it. Didn't blame her. I was a shell. Present, but not alive. Sucking the air out of every room I entered. The kids stopped calling after a while. I didn't reach out. What was I supposed to say? Sorry I've been dead inside your entire lives. Sorry, I care more about a man who died before you were born than I ever cared about being your father. Everything changed when I was 43. I was at the grocery store. Saw another guy, older than me, wearing a Marines veteran hat. Afghanistan. I don't know what possessed me, but I walked up to him. Asked him when he served. We talked for 20 minutes in the parking lot. He told me about his buddy who died in Helmand province. Aid. Same as Ryan. He'd been carrying it for 18 years. For the first time in 2 decades, I told someone the whole story. Not the sanitized version I told the VA. The real story. How I wished it had been me. How I couldn't feel anything anymore. How every good thing in my life felt like theft. He looked at me and asked, "You think your buddy would want this? You think Ryan died so you could spend the rest of your life hating yourself for surviving?" I told him I hadn't earned the right to move on, he said. Moving on isn't about earning anything. It is about choosing to live instead of choosing to die slowly. That conversation saved my life, because for the first time in 20 years, I realized something. Ryan didn't tell me to keep living, so I could spend the next 5 decades drowning in guilt. He didn't die so I could waste the life he'd never have. I started going to a veteran support group, talked to other guys carrying the same weight, learned that survivor's guilt isn't weakness. It is love with nowhere to go. I reached back out to my kids. They're adults now. 21 and 19. We met for coffee. It was awkward. Painful. They told me something I'll never forget. We didn't need a perfect dad. We just needed you to be there. To try. I am 47 now. Ryan died when he was 25. That means I've lived 22 years that he didn't get. And for the first time, instead of feeling guilty about that, I feel grateful. Because every day I am alive is a day I can honor his memory. By being present. By being kind. By actually living instead of just existing. The nightmares still come. The guilt still hits. Some days are harder than others. But I've learned that healing isn't about forgetting. It is about carrying the weight differently. I am telling you this story because there is something you need to understand. You think you have time. You think the people you love will always be there. You think you can call them tomorrow, visit them next month, tell them you love them eventually. You don't. Ryan thought he'd make it home, thought he'd propose to Maria, thought he'd coach high school football, thought he'd have kids and grandkids and a long life. He was wrong. And the difference between his life and his death was 3 feet. I've lived 22 years longer than my best friend. And I wasted 15 of those years being angry that I survived. That is 15 years. I'll never get back. 15 years of suffering that honored nobody. 15 years I could have spent being the father my kids deserved. Being the husband Jessica tried to love. Being alive. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait for tragedy to teach you what matters. Don't waste years carrying guilt over things you can't control. Call the people you love. Today. Right now. Tell them what they mean to you. Because one day, without warning, they'll be gone, and you'll spend the rest of your life wishing you'd said the things you were too busy or too scared to say. Life is fragile, random, unfair. The best people die too young. The wrong people survive. There is no justice to it. No meaning you can extract. Just chaos and luck and 3 feet that separate life from death. But here is what I've learned. You can't control who lives and who dies. You can only control what you do with the time you are given. Ryan has been gone for 22 years. But I carry him with me every single day. In the choices I make. In the kindness I try to show. In the relationships I am trying to rebuild. In the way I am finally learning to live my life. I am 47 years old. If I am lucky, maybe 30 more years. And when I die, I want to look Ryan in the eye and tell him, I didn't waste it. I lived enough for both of us. You don't need to go to war to understand what I am saying. You just need to understand that time is limited. That the people you love won't always be here. That every moment you waste is a moment you'll never get back. Don't wait. Don't postpone. Don't tell yourself you'll do it someday. Live now. Love now. Speak now. Because someday, you'll run out of time, and all you'll have left is regret. If this story means something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me. Who are you going to call today? What are you going to stop putting off? Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. I've got a few more left to tell before my time runs out. The clock is ticking. For all of us. What are you going to do with your time?